For many people, technology has become the number one resource of getting more knowledge, skills, and many other things nowadays. That's why we are proud to provide our new mega project, Vigor Digital Learning Hub, VDLH. VDLH is a digital service that helps organizations to continue their learning journeys for their employees by providing learning solutions that needed for mastering different knowledge and skills for greater performance through various updated and important topics. We are providing digital learning services like webinars, virtual simulations, online assessments, live sessions, virtual conferences and exhibitions, virtual reality, business consultation, and coaching sessions. VDLH providing tailored training topics that will help HR organizations to boost up their learning performance and engagement. We are providing personal skills, business topics, relationship skills. VDLH is providing their learning in different digital tools that will support the learning solutions with the most efficient ways to deliver a full learning experience. The number one rule of achieving your goal is taking action, and with VDLH, we will make sure that every single action you take will be calculated, effective, and always supported by us. Start now. Contact us for more details. VDLH. Endless learning.
Hello everyone, our vigorous and new joiners. Welcome to today's webinar, Colorize Your Organization for Better Teamwork. Thank you for taking time out and being here today. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you can hear us well, please type yes in the chat box. It's on the right-hand side of your screen. Just a reminder, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat box. Also, we will be running a 15-minute live Q&A at the end of the webinar. Bear with us till the end of the webinar to know how to get your free gift. As always, today is different. We hope you are having a clear mind and a notebook with you. Today, you will get a piece of interesting information and hands-on experience. We are keen to help and support everyone in this challenging time. This is the main value at Vigor Enterprise. That's why we are continuing our support to the community by providing our series of public webinars through VDLH, Vigor Digital Learning Hub. Our digital service to help individuals and organizations to continue the learning journeys anytime, anywhere in the world. If you are interested to know more about VDLH services, please contact us on contact@vigorenterprise.com. And today we have with Vigor Enterprise an amazing guest, Ms. Jasmine Belanger. Jasmine is the Vice President and Managing Partner of Swiss Nova Global Solutions. It doesn't stop there. Jasmine is an experienced entrepreneur, facilitator, and speaker. She has dedicated her life into her deepest passion, making a difference in the world by assisting leaders and their teams achieve their full potential. Through the Nova approach, her and her team help leaders and their teams achieve powerful results and flourish as organizations by focusing on expanding self-awareness for an optimal effectiveness. Please, let us all welcome Ms. Jasmine.
Hello, everyone. I am very happy to be with you today to talk to you about my topic that passionates me the most, the Nova Profile. Thank you, Vigor, for having me today. So first of all, today, I don't want you to be passive listening. I really want you to be actively listening because I will share with you knowledge that can help you know yourself better today. So who are we? Nova Global is really an organization. We're in 12 countries in 6 languages, and we are also in Arabic. Our mission is the expansion of each leader's full potential. And what I want to introduce you with is, imagine if in schools, everybody had to pass the same exam, knowing that we are all different. This is what is happening in the school industry, but it's also happening in organizations. We expect from people who are very different to act with the same skills, performance. So how do we achieve solid teams of aces? What you want in your team is to quickly assess who are your A in your teams, your aces. So what you want is high level of performance and a very strong culture fit. What you don't want is to have toxic A's. Those are the ones who are high achievers, high performing, but in the culture and the values, they are toxic because they're integrating false beliefs of performance and being in a competitive mode. And what you want is to have the best conditions so that the aces in your teams can really be performing and enhance the culture. So what you need to have these high performing and high culture fit is to use the Nova profile as a tool, which it's a way to assess in your team who has the highest talents and how to create the optimal conditions so that they can flourish in their full potential. So what is the Nova profile? The Nova profile is based on William Marston original DISC questionnaire. He was a solid psychologist associated with the language of colors. So we will talk to you about what are these colors, how can you assess them, and how can you make the best fit in your organization so that your teamwork is optimal. And then we integrate also Carl Jung's work with the psychological types, and we include also Edward Springer motivation and value. So what is the DISC and what are the 4 colors? Actually, we all have these 4 colors in us at varying intensities, and they all give you information about what's your natural talents and how can you put them in light in your team. So first of all, we have people who are more task-oriented. So they're the ones here, if you can see, task-oriented. They're the ones who are really perceiving their environment as hostile and threatening. So what you want is to, first of all, see what is your own perception of your environment. Is it hostile and threatening? Or on the contrary, do you see your world as more positive and inviting and you're interaction-oriented? And we can have both depending on the situation, and we can change our energy according to the situation. So first of all, the first energy, dominance, it's people who perceive their environment as hostile and threatening. They are task-oriented, they are extroverted, they see themselves as stronger than the environment. So they will seek for challenge and action. They're the ones who have strong energy, very bold, and they look for difficulties in your team. So you want to give them challenges. On the opposite, you have the compliance type. So those are the ones who are task-oriented as well, but they perceive themselves as weaker than the environment. So they will comply and seek for standards and structure so that they will fit and feel secure in an environment. So what you want to do with them is you want to create safe boundaries, structures that are clear, tell them what is the sets of qualities you want for them, because they like to comply and be very rigorous in their way they are achieving their work. And on the opposite, you have people who are more interaction-oriented. They perceive their surrounding as positive and inviting. And you have the ones who want to influence. So they are in interaction and they are extroverted. They perceive themselves as stronger than the environment, and they seek for interaction and fun. So the more you have those yellows in your team, you want to make sure they're having fun, they have possibilities to interact, they're very creative and communicative. And then you have also the green, who is more introverted in the interaction phase. So they will more be listening, seeking for harmony, calm pace, stability, and coherence. So we all have these four energies, and beware not to say, oh, I am red or I am blue, because you can also have a low color that will give you as much information as a high one. And we are not just one color, we are the four of them, but at different intensities. So I will go a little bit more in detail so you can understand each of them. So you have the directive energy. There are people who go straight to the point. They will be very energetic and decisive, and they fall and get back right back up. So they're never talking about the problem. They're always focused on solutions. Then you have the charismatic leader. So they're the ones who have a large network of relationships. They like to interact a lot. They're optimistic and confident, and they're very persuasive and convincing because their energy is contagious and they have a high level of enthusiasm. Then you have the green, who is more cooperative leaders. So they implement methodical and systematical matters. They like to do one thing after the other in their own rhythm. They're perseverant and constantly looking to improve themselves. And they're also very reassuring in their way of listening. They have a quality of presence that is pacing and harmonizing in a team. And then you have the experts. So they're the one who implement strategies, action plans. They're objective and free of emotions. And they like to put procedures in place, and they have a lot of personal discipline. So while you're listening, please try to see what are your predominant colors, because later on we will have a polling and you can detect which is your predominant color. So in management styles, you have the four types. So if your predominant style is more red, in your way of leading your team, you will be more directive. So you will like to be very the one in charge. You have no problems taking on challenges, giving directives, being very bold and affirmed. Sometimes can have the tendency to become impatient or to not really listen to others, because the red is a lot of the energy of fire. It's this energy that needs always to be in action, in difficulties, problem solving, and they're not really good in interaction when it comes to getting out of the task and going into the relationship. Then they see it sometimes as a waste of time because this fire is kind of always needing to be in action. So beware, if you have this high red in your directive type, you're very good to take on challenges. Your difficulty can be around really engaging and being in this coaching approach with your employees. Then you have the motivating type. So that's the managers who like to bring the team around them and really to be the one that is inspiring them, engaging them in a shared vision, being really in this creative, visionary mind. So they're the ones who love to brainstorm with their team, to engage them, to have solid relationships and a lot of communication with them. But the downfall can be, if you're lacking blue or red, they can become scattered and not enough focused on the realism of their ideas or their projects, and sometimes the pleasure takes too much space, so they can seem unprofessional or utopic in their way of managing. And then you have the green type. So the green type is more focused on cooperation, talks about the we instead of the me, really about this team synergy. So he's more the manager that is equal side by side with his team, very comprehensive, good listener, reassuring in his leadership, so likes to make people feel comfortable and safe, very sincere and engaged on the long term. The challenge with the leaders who are more green is that sometimes difficult decisions or confrontation or the courage of the manager is not always there, because they like harmony. And when they can see a situation that could be disharmonious or conflictual, that can be challenging. And then you have the blue type in the managing style. So they're more administrative. So they're very focused about KPIs and forecast and planning, and they're really great as managers on the task and on the overview of the structure and the order in the team, but forgets about the engagement, the communication, the need to motivate their team and have a relationship. Can seem cold and really disconnected sometimes, talks a lot through emails and through more, let's say, has a distance emotionally with his team. So I would be curious, what would be your predominant color in your leadership style? The one who are listening, I would like to know what is your predominant energies. So I'll let you answer the polling. And while you are answering, I will share also what are the challenges of each type of managing and leadership type. So as you are answering the polling, the areas for improvement for each leadership style. So if your style is more the bold one, your challenge can be to forget about others. So here, while I'm looking at the polling, there seems to be only 9% of you that recognize yourself in this type. So the ones who answered to the bold one means that you might be under stress, autocratic, and really be very dominant in your way of directing. And so we have 52% in the charismatic leadership, which is very interesting. So most of the people listening here, in your way of leading your team, you might become utopian and forget about the context. So you're a lot about the relationship and the engagement and having fun and keeping your team in a high spirit mode. So this is your big strength. But your challenge is when it comes to discipline and planning and being in the realism of projects, or sometimes having to address difficult situation with your team, this can be more challenging. So keep that in mind. And then we have 26% of you that said that you were more persevering in your leadership style. So that means that sometimes the fact you are so much connected to your team and the we and the harmony in the team, you might forget about yourself and be a lot in this energy of giving giving to your team, to the organization, and then becoming overly indulgent and not enough affirming what needs to be addressed and having confrontational discussions sometimes that need to be done in order to continue having a high level of performance. So keep that in mind. And then there's 14% of you that said you're more in the expert leadership style. So that means that you're very focused on the task and focused about what needs to be done and structured, but you have a tendency, like the red, to be so focused on the task that you forget about your team and the interaction with them and keeping a high spirit and all that. So this is food for thought for you. So I hope it helps you start to reflect about your leadership style. So each color gives you information about how you, for the red, handle problems and difficulties. For the yellow, how you interact with others. For the green is how you adopt a rhythm and stable environment. And for the blue, it's how you react to rules and procedures. And what the NOVA concept is used for is for optimal efficiency. So first, it's knowing about yourself. So what I suggest for you, for the ones who don't have their NOVA profile, to do your leadership profile so you can know better what are your different leadership style, your area for improvement, your natural talents, your way of communicating, and how can you become a better leader. And then you have the adaptability phase. That's where you need to know how to recognize the color of your team or of your partners or the people you're interacting with. And then you can adapt between me and the others. So I'll give you tips right away after how to better communicate with each color. And then the optimal effectiveness is really adapting between me, the others, and the situation or the context. So for example, when the COVID started, so managers and CEOs had to be in the red energy of quick reactivity about the measures of the government that were announced. We had to act quickly. It wasn't time to be in the yellow and creating new projects, and it was really about action needs to be done and decisions need to be made quickly. So that was the red needed in this situation, and this is true for all kinds of contexts in an organization. So what you want to know is, what is your team's profile, what is your profile as a manager, and what is the context needed for optimal efficiency. Then when you communicate with each color, what you want to do when you recognize that the person you're talking to is red, you need to be direct and concentrated on the topic at hand and speak in terms of objectives and results and be concise and confident. When you're talking to yellow, you want to be friendly and sociable. You want to be fun and spontaneous. And you want to be open, flexible, and not too formal, because do not forget, their world is about pleasure. And then the green, you want to be patient and considerate. Adopt their rhythm of work. Remember, they have a stability need for a slow rhythm, so they like to be relaxed and do things one at a time. Don't come and be too much in a hurry. And you want to ask for their opinion and give them time to respond. They need time to digest and to give you feedback. The blue, you want to be well prepared and precise, provide things on paper, and give them time to analyze the details. What you don't want to do with each color, so with the red, you don't want to hesitate or talk for nothing. You don't want to share your personal feelings or never take their place. They want to be the one calling the shots. They want to be the ones who are decision making. So avoid taking decisions in their space. The yellow, you want to avoid annoying them with too many details, imposing a routine, and asking them to work alone. Remember, they need to be an interaction. So if you ask them to be too much alone, they will really lose pleasure in what they're doing. The green, you want to avoid taking advantage of their generosity, forcing them to make quick decisions, and surprising them last minute. They hate this. And for blue, you want to avoid being too closely physically. So remember, they have a circumference around them. They don't like to be too close with others. Trivializing important details and changing their habits without prior notice. This is very important. So what you want to know is, are you aware of your employees' authentic self? You remember in the beginning, I talked to you about performance and how to detect the highest aces in your team. You need to put them in the right places according to their natural talents. But in the NOVA profile, you can measure the waste of performance very easily because we have the natural style. So the natural style is who you really are. This is your natural talents, and that's what you want to bring forth in your team. And how to discover this, you need to do their NOVA profile, and then you can do a team profile. So you as a manager, you can see what's the natural talents of each of your team. So here, this is the natural talents. And here, this is how much energy they are investing to adapt themselves. So what you want to avoid is the adaptation part to be so away from their natural talents. So you want to put them in position where they can flourish and really expand their full potential. And then you are creating the optimal conditions for each of your team members to be in their full potential and be, of course, performing, because that's the end result. They will be performing if they are in their natural energy, instead of asking, for example, to this person who has a low blue to be very precise and analytical and work in R&D and work on planning and a lot of Excel sheets. That's what you want to avoid with this type of person. What you want to give them is a lot of difficulties, challenges, independence, a lot of possibilities to interact with a lot of people, and a quite fast rhythm because the green is not so high. But here, there's 82% of that energy that is wasted in this adapted, and this is what you really want to access for your team. And now I'm going to talk to you about the motivation part, because the motivation is so important. So I know that the colors, it's a lot to digest. And don't worry, Vigor will send you a synthesis of all this, and this is just an introduction. So what you want to discover is how your team is working, what are their behaviors, their competencies, their intelligence. And this you can measure with the NOVA profile. What are the behaviors and the competence that are natural for your team? And what is also their adaptive behaviors in accordance to their position. And you want to reduce the gap between who they really are in their natural style and who they think they are in their adapted style. So what you want to focus also, at the core of each individual, there is a big why. There is a motivation, a need for purpose, a need for meaning. And this is much more important than the behaviors. The colors are super important to really understand how a person acts and what's their natural talents and behaviors and what do they need in order to really be in their full potential. But what you want is to really understand what is the deepest values of each team member and each team, so that as a leader, you're much more inspiring them to really expand and to keep engaging on the long term. So you will reduce your turnover rate by investing on understanding the why of your team. So what you want to do here, you want to understand we all have 6 different types of motivation. So I will walk you through each of the motivation and give you tips on how to engage more each of them. So if you have the high cognitive, and pay attention because there will be a polling about what is your highest motivation here. So the ones who have a high cognitive motivation, what does that mean? It means you value truth, knowledge, and you like to systemize truth, and you value science, proven truth, things, data, you like statistics, you like R&D, you like to always be in a continuing learning process. So if in your team, someone has a high cognitive, what you want to do, instead of giving them bonuses, use that money to invest in their continuing training. And Vigor is a great place to invest for this. So they will love and be very engaged about learning. Then if you have the aesthetic motivation, what does that mean? It means that you are motivated by beauty, but in a large term. So beauty that you can feel, that you can realize your full potential and really feel the connection with harmony that is in you and surrounding you. So it can be as easy as watching a beautiful a scenery in nature, or having a deep conversation with someone that you feel was fulfilling for your self-realization. So in your team, if people have a high aesthetic, you want to make sure that they are realizing their full potential, that they have possibility to express their creativity and their need for harmony. Then for the utilitarian motivation, so utilitarian means that you are focused on really gaining results, being focused on efficiency, getting the maximum return on investment in everything you do. It's not just about money, it can be also about time, about resources. Anything you do, you hate wasting your time. So people who have a high utilitarian in your team, you can use bonuses and really use KPIs to engage them even more in performing and showing them through pragmatic proofs and results how their actions are giving results. And then you have the altruist motivation. So the altruist motivation is really about helping others, love for humanity. There are people who are very caring and understanding and human. So in a team, they will be the ones who like to really focus on the collaboration. How can they help or assist their teammates? And they want to feel they're contributing to the well-being of the team in general. So what you want to do as a manager, you want to make sure that they feel useful for the human interactions in your teams. Then you have the individualistic motivation. So these are the ones who want to be recognized for the individuality, their leadership. They like to have independence, autonomy, and to be recognized also as a unique and people who have a strong belief system, and they like to be recognized for who they are. So you want to give them, if in your team you notice someone has this high motivation, you want to give them more responsibilities, titles, recognition, but be careful. If they are more introverted, green, and have the ideological motivation. So this motivation, everybody has it at varying intensity. So we all have a value system that is higher than us and that is contributing to the well-being of society in general. And this can be done through many ways. It can be values as respect, ethics. It can be values as family, ecology. It can be causes. But we all have these value system that is non-negotiable, and you cannot argue with these values. So what is super important for you as a manager is to know what are the motivation in your team, and how can you make sure that the projects or the task that they are assigned to are in alignment with their natural values, because otherwise they will leave the organization. This is the part of each individual that is non-negotiable. So I would like you to answer the polling about what is your predominant motivation here, and how could you really nourish that motivation even more. So really interesting to see you answering to the polling. And while you are answering, I will continue here the presentation. So in your team, what you need to know is that we all have different psychological types. Like all of us, we really have different preferences. And what you want in a team is to make sure that your team is diverse in terms of psychological types. You want a lot of different talents, depending, of course, on the focus of the team and on the projects you are working in and what's the industry you're in. So what is interesting here, as I'm seeing in the polling, is that you have a predominant utilitarian motivation, which is not very surprising for if you are managing or your leaders. Oftentimes, leaders are focused on the performance, on the results, but remember, you don't have only one motivation. You can have 1, 2, or 3 predominant motivation, and it gives a lot of nuances to your colors and your natural talents. So the utilitarian ones are the ones who will love to maximize the full results. So very interesting, and you can use what you heard today in the content right away. This is a very useful tool that in every interaction, you can detect what is the color of the person I'm talking with, how can I maximize this communication and be even more efficient. And then we have 20% of you guys who are altruistic, who care for others. So this tool can help you to really understand how others function and how can you really help them to be in their best self. And then there's 16% cognitive and 16% individualistic. So cognitive, I hope I'm nourishing your need for knowledge, and you'll probably want to know more. So you'll receive information through vigor. And then individualistic, you guys like to know really what is your own, probably you're listening and saying, what are my colors? What is my way of nourishing my motivation, etc. And then there's 15% of you who are ideological, which means you are very driven by causes and your value system. So as managers, you will really be infused with these values that you will express through your leadership. And then 6% aesthetic. So the aesthetic ones are the ones who want to really develop their full potential. So very interesting. Thank you for answering the poll. And as I said, we really have all these different psychological types in us. And depending on really what are the colors of your team, you will see it on a team profile. I will show you. So I'm going to give you a quick taste of what a team profile could look like in your team. So here we have a general manager who is high red and yellow in his natural style, has a high ideology, high altruistic motivation, and high aesthetic motivation. And the VP in marketing here is quite opposite in his colors, which is more green, blue, and then yellow with a low red. So what does it say to us? if you were in this situation and you were the general manager and your direct VP marketing is in the opposite style of you, and you are managing a team who are very different. So there's directive people, organizing, analytical, some are more collaborative. So the general manager will have difficulties in this situation if he's not accompanied with the Nova profile, because his way of working is to be direct and very focused on general views and global vision and projects, and focused on creativity, being very aesthetic, and also having a strong system of values that is manifested in his way of dealing with his team. On the opposite, the VP in marketing will be much more methodical, structured, precise, and will need a lot of details, which he won't have from the general manager because the blue is low. So that's the first cause of possible conflict in this dynamic. Then the other one is the rhythm. So the green is very high for the VP marketing. So likes to have time to plan, to have cohesive decisions, to also do some research and development because the cognitive is high for this motivation. And so this VP will find his general manager much more really too impulsive, too fast, and doesn't take time to take careful and cautious decisions. So there will be a lot of friction between the two of them. And if they don't know how to communicate with colors and to talk about what the context needs as an energy, they will not be able to interact, and probably the VP will dismiss and leave because won't feel understood. This VP, when he's managing the team, can have facility with all these types of energies in the team because they're more close to his natural colors. But when it comes to communicating with these types, it will be much more difficult for the VP in marketing to communicate with them, because it's going to be much more the opposite of his energy. These people in his team will need to have direct energy, have a concise communication, bold energy, and very focused on the task. Whereas they will get that with the general manager, because the general manager is much more connected with these types of colors. But when it comes to communicating with more the introversion part of the team, it will be much more difficult for the general manager to communicate with them because he's much more extroverted and bold and direct, and they might become passive aggressive with this leader because they will judge him as being much more too aggressive and too invasive in their space as well, with no concern about their details and what they're working on. So this is just a quick little taste of how it could look like in a team. And what you want with your teams is to understand what's the overview of the natural talents of your team, and then have the individual profiles to know what are their motivation and how can you enhance the engagement on the long term for each team member to make sure that they are assigned tasks and projects that are aligned with their motivation, because if not, there's a high chance of turnover. And also, when a team understands what's the colors of their other teammates, there's less judgment, there's less conflicts, and there's much more effectiveness, synergy, and really like this collaboration spirit. So for an organization, you can use the NOVA concept for hiring and recruiting. So you want to define the job profile in accordance with the candidate, the candidate's natural talent. So you want to put them in the right places right at the beginning. In the integration process, you can also see what are the natural talents that needs to be expanded, or what needs to be adjusted in the position so that it fits and align with the candidate. In managing, it's amazing to have executive coaching with this profile, because it can help you how to improve as a manager, be more agile, and also how to adapt yourself to your team's profile. And then also in training, it's amazing to train your people either in communication, customer service, sales, change management. There's so many things that we can do with this profile. Coaching, of course, it's a great tool to either give a gift to your teammates, to help them really feel recognized and valued, to have personal coaching with their profile. This is great. And also when there's transition, especially in these times, there's a lot of movement, a lot of uncertainty. So it's a great way also to create your new career or redefine some things in your transitions. So there's a lot of specialized applications to the profile. You will see, and Vigor will send you all the information. We have also demo profiles if you are interested to see what a Nova profile looks like. So, of course, there's a lot of value to the Nova concept. It's validated from psychometric tools. It's very strong. It's fast. It's 15 minutes to answer the questionnaire. It's very accessible. People understand the language of colors because it's neutral. There's no judgments according to colors. It's complete and relevant. As I said, there's free psychological theories basing on this profile. And it has been proving to have profitability for the company, because if you invest in your human capital, you will reduce the risk of turnover and have much more performing teams. So now it's time for questions. If you have questions, I'm here to answer your questions.
That was fascinating. Thank you, Jasmine.
You're welcome.
We'll go ahead and take some time for questions now. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your question into the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to share with us, and Jasmine will shortly answer it for you. So we have a question from Mr. Nader. He's asking, so culture fit is more important than level of performance?
Actually, both are important, because you can have high achieving team members, but if there's not a cultural fit, and they can become toxic for the culture and really diminish the engagement in the teams because of their behavior that can be toxic. So on the task, they're giving good results, but on the culture level, they can do a lot of damage to teams because of their negative behavior. So I would say it's equally important, but for me, they go hand in hand, because if you want the success of the organization, you need to have alignment with the culture, and so that when you're hiring, it must be very clear that it's part of your process and of your selection. I hope it answered his question.
So we have one more question from Hind. She's asking, can we change our profiles?
Yes, interesting question. Yes, the profile can change depending on very strong situation in your life. So it could be a death, it could be a huge impact experience that you had that can really change your foundation as a person. But usually your natural style and your colors are the same since childhood. So if you were very extroverted as a kid, you're probably going to stay extroverted as an adult. Of course, there can be subtleties where, especially if you're always in a process of introspection and improving yourself, then you will grow and you will be more agile and more conscious about your strength and your areas for improvement. So you'll have more adaptability. And usually the motivations are pretty stable throughout your career and your life. But again, if you have important situation that happened to you, it might change and your motivation might change. So what I suggest is when you do your NOVA profile, to do it every year to see what is the evolution in your natural style and in your motivation and in your adaptive way of responding to your environment. And to have a coach that is following you through your development. Yeah. Other question?
Yes, we have one from Saif. He's asking, do we need to enhance our profiles based on teamwork?
Do we need to what?
Enhance our profiles based on teamwork.
I'm not sure to understand what does enhance your profile mean for the person asking. Actually, yeah, what you need to do is to really look at your profile. What we want for people is to become adaptable, but remain authentic with their true nature. So you don't want to make them someone else. What we want is to make sure that each individual is understood in their preferences, but also take into account the importance of the context, what is necessary as colors and motivation in a particular context, so that people can really be in this effectiveness.
We have one more question from Mr. Reda Mejri. He's asking, how accurate is this DISC model?
It's very accurate. It depends. There's other profiles that use DISC approach. What is our added value is we really put forth the motivation. That is super important. When you're managing a team, you want to know what's their big why, so you can keep them engaged, and there are talents in your motivation. So our level of accuracy is very high. Our clients recognize themselves between 85 and 95% in their profile, 95% of the time.
We have one more question from Fatma. She's asking, if we take the assessment after 6 months and the natural colors were different, what does that mean? Should the natural color be always the same?
No, the natural colors can change, but usually they will never change drastically. You will never become, if you are, for example, more green and blue, you will never become red and yellow all of a sudden. But you'll have different varying intensities that can happen. And I suggest to really analyze what happened in the past 6 months to see what changed and why is this person changing in their natural style. So it really requires coaching session to really understand what is the reason of that change.
Hind is asking how to maintain the relationship with her kids by these colors.
Well, you need to check as a parent what are your natural energies, and then look at your kids and look at what are their natural behaviors and adapt yourself. So for my example, I have 2 kids. They're 2 different. So one is very much more yellow and red, and the other one is yellow and green. So both of them like pleasure. So I'm very communicative with them, and that's natural to my style also. But then with one that is more green, I need to be more calm and more patient. And with the other one, I need to be more bold and direct. So it's depending on each of your kids' colors. But you can explain the colors through animals with kids. They understand it very easily. So the red could be the tiger, the yellow, the monkey, the green could be the cat, and the blue can be the owl. So my kids understand it already, and they're 3 and 6. So yeah.
We have a question from Mr. Nader. He's asking, what are some of the ways we can apply the NOVA profile into training sessions, particularly in remote learning in current situation?
Yes, well, we can really implement the NOVA profile in all types of trainings, because it really gives solid tools and tips how to better communicate. So what we do is we often do introduction to the NOVA profile in a team setting, and in a half a day you can already advance a lot with a team, and then you can apply it in different contexts depending on what type of learning development you want to do with your team.
The next question is, how can you integrate the cultural characteristics in this model, in the sense of how is the impact of culture on the personality traits in team building?
I would need to read that question again because I'm not sure.
Okay, I believe I can share it with you. So we will have another one. In which situation you prefer to minimize rewarding?
In which what situation?
In which situation you prefer to minimize rewarding?
Minimize rewarding. Well, in settings that you want to remain neutral in a team meeting, you don't want to give too much individual attention. You want to try to be equal. So it's better as a manager to have individual sessions with each of your team members to give them the rewarding according to their motivations, of course. Yeah. So I saw there was also a question, especially in sales team, is it important or required to have all colors in a team, especially in sales team? It depends. What are you selling? What are you selling? And then who is the team manager? And yes, you can have same types of profile depending on what you're selling, what is your clientele. You can have a specific type of profile that is more similar because it's more efficient in this setting. But it really requires to know what's your particular context and what you're selling.
Hani is asking, this is actually an interesting topic. Thank you, Hani. How can we change our profiles?
How can we change our profiles is through deep realizations. We're always growing as humans, and I think the more you're growing, the more you will, some things will either refine in you and solidify or crystallize, or some other things might change drastically. For example, if you change country, if you just had like a huge breakup, divorce, something, I don't know, things that are really major in your life can shake your foundations as a personality. So yeah, there could be so much discussion around this, but yeah, I'll leave it to that.
Okay, Mariam is asking, is the supernova same concept as spiral dynamic?
I don't know this spiral dynamic approach, so I couldn't answer to this.
Okay, and Nurhan is asking, how can I change my profile from cooperative motivation to be more directive or administrative?
Actually, you don't want to change your profile because you want to more embrace what is your natural talents instead of changing. In our society, we've been always taught to look at what we are not and wanting to fill in the void. But with the Nova, what we want to focus on is what are your talents and your assets that are already there, and how can you embrace them and really fulfill your full potential with it. So I would not recommend to want to change. You can look at what are the things in the directive or administrative types that you like, and how could you develop these competence without becoming directive or administrative in this case.
We have a quite interesting question from Al Thuraya. The question is, does the type of manager depend on the environment? For example, the Kuwaiti manager and the Western manager.
Actually, we give these cultural adaptation in the way we express our colors, but it remains that what you want is, in general, a manager that is in Switzerland or in Kuwait. It doesn't change anything in their preferences. So if you have a high yellow as a manager, no matter where you are and in which context you are, you will remain focused on pleasure and interaction and be communicative. The way you will nourish your need for pleasure and interaction and influence will be adapted to the context. So you will adapt. It can be nuanced, like different dialects, but it will still remain the same essence of energy. So that's why it's a very international approach. And that's why we have clients all around the world, because it's a common language. It doesn't matter what culture you come from. It unifies. So I suggest that when you know your colors and your motivation, that you don't change for the organization, but you adapt and become more agile by integrating this in your way of becoming a better leader, by remaining authentic as well.
Mr. Ayman is asking, does a leader have to have a kaleidoscope that contains more than one elastic and firm personality?
I'm not sure to understand the question. I'm sorry, because I'm visual, so I need to read the question.
Okay, I have sent you the first one. I can share this one again. So we have one more question from Camilla. How can I be a sociable character, deal with different personalities?
So how can you become a sociable character? Well, it's always linked to the level of yellow. So if you have a high yellow, it's already part of your nature. But if you want to develop this capacity to be more sociable, I highly recommend that you remain still connected to your natural colors. So if you have a low yellow, but you have more green or blue, you can use your ability to listen to interact. So you don't need to be as active in the communication, but remain present and receptive so that people can come to you and interact with you, and you remain in this space of openness. Yeah. Is specific profession demands on specific profiles? Yes, there are, like, you can have specific fields in which people can really realize their full potential depending on their colors. So for example, you can find architects more with a high blue and high aesthetic motivation. Usually that's the type you will find, but it can be very, very nuanced, because of course life is not one fixed box. Every human being is unique, and you can find all types of profiles in all types of professions. Yeah, so the question about the cultural characteristics. So how can you integrate the cultural characteristics in this model in the sense of how is the impact of culture on the personality traits in team building? So yeah, the cultural characteristics can be implemented in the NOVA because it gives you another layer of subtlety and nuance, so it can help you to even more adapt yourself to the culture you are in, and also have a common language and understand what's the motivation that you are tapping into depending on the team and the culture that you are part of. Is there any other questions that I didn't answer?
And yes, we have two more. The first one is from Mr. Bashar. He's asking, is it best to be in the adaptive or natural state at work?
Very important question. It's super important to remain in your natural energy, no matter if it's at home or at work, because that's your natural energies, your natural talents, and then you will be in a state of flow. The state of flow brings forth optimal efficiency. So you will be much less exhausted if you remain connected to your natural style and are aware of it and bring forth the success factors so you can remain in that natural flow. The adapted is often used unconsciously as a social mask that we put on our face according to what we think we should be to be effective in the organization, or what we think the expectations are towards us. So yeah, it's a very tricky question. So I would say that we all adapt ourselves consciously or unconsciously, but having NOVA as a tool on the long term on your career, you can always come back to it and readjust, and have a coach that will follow you through your development to make sure you remain aligned. Any other questions?
Yes, the last one with us today is Mr. Muhammad. He's asking, if you have mix of characteristics between two different colors, so how can you evaluate which area or color you are close to?
Yeah, good question. What you want to focus on is, what does the context require from you as an energy? So because you have access to two high energies, for example, me, I have high yellow, high red, and green. So I can navigate in these three energies very easily. So I assess quickly what this situation requires from me. For example, an employee calls me, there's urgent matter with a client, I will go in my red energy and be reactive. If an employee calls me and they're having emotional distress, or I will go in my green energy because they will need my calm and receptive listening skills. Then if I'm in a setting like today, I had to be in my yellow because it's time to influence, to share my knowledge, and to communicate. So depending on what the situation requires, you can navigate between the two.
So these are all the questions we have for today. With no doubt, when you have an informative and amazing webinar with you, Jasmine. Thank you so much for your time and effort.
Thank you all for your presence. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Jasmine. As a strategic and exclusive partner in the Middle East with Swiss Nova, we would like to thank Ms. Jasmine and to thank you all for being a part of this great webinar. For more information and details about Nova Profile and Swiss Nova services, please reach us on contact@vigorenterprise.com. Please make sure to fill the survey that will be sent to you on your registered email so you can get your free gift for this webinar. We are Vigor Enterprise and are glad to announce our upcoming public live webinar, Developing High Performing Teams. which will be held on June 23rd. Please make sure to visit our website to get more information and to register. Thank you again from Vigor Enterprise and VDLH. Stay safe, wash your hands, and see you soon.
Hello everyone, my name is Rich Bernstein and I'm the President and CEO of Mars Venus Executive Training. Right now, diversity is such a big issue in corporations and companies around the world. But the foundation of real diversity is gender diversity. This is called gender intelligence. Vigor Enterprises and Mars Venus Executive Training, we are bringing gender intelligence to the Middle East. I want to personally invite you to our webinar. It's our first Middle East Gender Intelligent webinar on June 23rd at 7:30 p.m. Kuwait time. You're going to learn so much during this webinar. For example, the rule of 9, how to talk to men and women differently to get maximum results and productivity. How different parts of the brain function different with men and women. You're going to learn about gender intelligence and how to make that your competitive edge in business. You don't want to miss this one. It's Gender Intelligent Workshop Webinar in the Middle East, June 23rd at 7:30 p.m. Kuwait time. I'd love to see you there. Thanks.